In the digital age, it's the appreciation of analog which is gaining momentum. But according to the British Phonographic Industry, more than 5 million vinyl records were sold in 2021, and this is up by 8% on the previous year and marking a 14th consecutive year of growth for the format. And it's not only the legendary LP that's making a comeback. Cassette sales, can you believe it? They too are reportedly also on the rise. Joining us now to talk more about this from Johannesburg is Charles Leonard, podcast editor at Newzroom. Mr. Leonard, good to be with you on the Daytime Update today. Now, when one talks about LPs, and now we're talking about cassettes as well, one would have thought that all of that is very much in the olden days, back there with the fossils. But it seems that this is indeed not the reality.
Well, if you want to call guys like me fossils, well, it is with us. But it's great.
Well,
it's wonderful.
Well, don't you worry. Don't you worry, because if we're talking about LPs and cassettes and fossils, and, you know, if that's the case, then I'm included in that too, because I'm very much a cassette girl.
I'm glad to hear. I'm very glad to hear.
Go ahead, sir.
Yes. Isn't it fantastic that it's almost like a perpetual thing that we see at this time of the year every year now, as you've said, for 14 years, and those are just the numbers in the UK. Unfortunately, we don't know what the numbers are here, because as far as I know, they still don't tally up what the numbers are. But here in South Africa, it's also growing at a phenomenal rate. And as a vinyl record collector, that makes me very glad that our community is just growing and growing and growing.
Well, we can see behind you that you certainly are a vinyl collector. While most people would have books in their background, there you have with your very impressive display of vinyls. But perhaps let me ask you this. Why is there an uptake in vinyls again?
There are a number of reasons. One of them is people are realizing how good records sound when you play them. And there is actually a real reason for that. If you were to compare them with MP3s, you know, the files you listen to on your phone, for example, audio files get compressed. And the reason why is that they are small enough that you can put thousands on your phone or you can stream, whereas records don't get compressed. So you don't lose anything when a record gets pressed. You get that depth and texture. So that's one of the big reasons why albums, LPs, vinyl are just growing, and more people are returning to it or discovering it for the first time and realizing how wonderful it is. It's also to do with the fact that these sneaky capitalist marketers, when CDs came out, they told us these things will last forever. They are indestructible. We all know that was total nonsense, but we fell for it. And records are not indestructible, but they just sound a lot better. So the other thing is also, it's the tactile, it's the physical thing. You know, if I were to pull out a record or two from behind me, they have history, they have the art. If you take them out, they have a certain smell. And I hope I don't sound too much of a geek there, but there's something, there's a connection. You know, you can remember where you bought records. If I would pull out a Hugh Masekela or a Nina Simone or Beastie Boys or Al Green or, you know, Aretha, I can go on and on and on. I can remember. But do I remember what was the circumstances of the 80,000 songs I've got on my laptop? No. And that's another thing. It's that kind of, there's a certain value. There's a certain thing that there's a connection between you and an LP. And even singles. I still buy a lot of singles, you know, the 45s, the little guys. I still buy them as well.
As you speak, I'm reminded of what a book lover would say, or somebody who enjoys reading a magazine, that just holding that book and paging through it physically, and just the smell of the paper does something to you. It does bring a sense of nostalgia, in the same way that having an actual physical album, funnily enough, this is something my sister and I were talking about on Christmas Day, how having an album to flip through is so different to having your pictures or on a stick somewhere that you probably never even go back to. But let's talk about the type of albums and the type of vinyls that are actually being sold. Is there a specific genre that is being picked up? Are we talking more jazz albums? Is it pop? What is the lay of the land looking like as far as the genre of choice?
Having looked at what the top selling albums were in the UK this past year, it's a combination of things. There's pop, Adele, and that, I think, crosses generations, genres, not genres, age groups, people from different backgrounds. So there's that, but there's also still the old perennials like the Beatles, their reissues. It's mainly reissues, not as many new releases, but as you know, most records these days, most albums these days get released on vinyl and on MP3. Quite a few don't even make it onto CD these days. So it is, I guess it is a little bit of, you were talking about fossils earlier. It is a bit of the fossil market, but I can assure you the hippest, coolest artists at the moment across genre, from indie to hip hop to some dance music, you will certainly get that on vinyl as well. And I buy across the genres and new and old. There are reissues, as I've said, but there are brand new albums which are coming out. And I'm at the moment, or have been listening to a lot of new records that I've bought over the year so that I can do my best albums of 2021. And it's only things that were released for the first time in 2020.
And that's quite interesting, the stats that you've just given to us, that the music releases are happening then, you know, digitally and then on vinyl as well. Is this an international trend, or are we seeing it in South Africa as well?
We're seeing it here as well. We've got, I think it's around 5 record stores here in South Africa that sell new albums. They, you know, you can pick up old albums in pawn shops and antique stores and so on. And it seems like they're all doing well. No one's went bang during the past 2 years with almost 2 years of the lockdown. Many people were under pressure across other businesses, but it seems like the guys are doing well here. Interestingly enough, South African jazz is doing very well. Maybe it's because I buy it as well, and my friends buy it. But if you walk into any of these 5 record stores, you'll see a lot of South African jazz, and you have to be quick because it sells out very quickly as well. So that's great to say that's doing very well.
That's quite an interesting point. How then does this affect the future? And I know we're not futurists and we're not looking into any sort of glass ball, but there are many stores, music stores, that were selling CDs, vinyls, etc., that had to shut down because of the migration into digital and digital sales. Could we perhaps, maybe in the next 5, 10 years, see a reversal of this?
It looks like it already, and I hope it will happen. If you were mentioning books as well. You see, and I think it's a lot to do with how people sell, how people care when you walk into the record store. If there are people there who actually care and know their music, I will go back there because they know what I like. They will keep even records aside for me, and my sense is that's how they deal with most customers who go in there. They're genuinely interested in the music. It's not just some kind of product that they're selling. It's sad when stores go under, but the few times had to go to Musica, for example, I was looking for a specific record and it was sold out at other places. People don't really pay attention. People don't know anything about the music that they're selling. They don't have the passion that I have. And, that's why I won't return there, or didn't return there. But the 5 record stores that I know of here, I go there and it's birds of a feather. It's, kindred spirits. We all love our records, our music, and people introduce you to amazing music in the process as well. And I think it's an attitude thing as well. And that's why I think, your prediction is hopefully and is likely to be correct, that we will see this reversal. And it's not one excluding the other.
Yes. Perhaps the two will continue growing side by side. There's always the convenience of being able to purchase something instantaneously and have it available for you. So that convenience, I don't think, will go away. But certainly being able to, create a library of vinyls and have something for a keepsake, that also has some emotional value. But let's talk about the price point here as far as vinyls are concerned. They do tend to be more expensive than something that you would be able to get online, for example. Why are they expensive, and what are the price ranges for albums?
They are expensive. They are sometimes a little bit too expensive for an obsessive person like me. Also, the guys here, if you buy from a record store, keep in mind they have other kinds of overheads as well. If you were to order online records from the UK, for example, and you get it sent via FedEx, it works out sometimes even a little bit cheaper. The reason why it's so expensive, it is, if you were to look at it, firstly, the size, the weight. There aren't as many pressing facilities, plants, as there used to be, say, in the late 80s when CDs started to take over. In South Africa, there's no commercial pressing plant anymore. There used to be several. So that's the thing. It's a supply and demand thing. And these great South African records, for example, there's a wonderful one by a trombonist called Malcolm Gianni, one of my albums of the year, but they have to press it abroad, and that costs a lot of money. So it's the production that makes it more expensive. And also then the artwork, it's not just a little file, it's the actual vinyl record. There's the paper that gets pasted onto it. There's the inner sleeve, there's the outer sleeve. So I guess that explains why it's quite expensive. But then it lasts.
I guess so. I mean, I was looking through the prices, browsing through the prices, and here they range from around 100 Rand, that was the lowest one that I've seen, and the most expensive one looked like a 690 Rand, and that would have been for like a double LP. And that's quite a pretty price to be paying, for any sort of record. But as you say, maybe the fact that it lasts compensates for it. How do you take care of your vinyls? How do you make sure that you don't have those scratches? And it is a hefty investment. How do you take care of that investment?
With great care. As you can see, one of the things is you have to keep your records in a vertical position, because if you put them horizontal, there's this thing called gravity. So, it presses on the records below. You have to be very careful when you put the needle in the groove. And yeah, it is, luckily for me, I've still got my hi-fi from back in the day. I've got my DJ turntables, and I've got good needles. So you have to be careful. You have to make sure that your needles are good, because it can damage your record if you play your record on a bad record player. And keep it clean once you've played it, put it back in the sleeve, because it attracts dust. And so that also damages your record, and clean it properly. but they lost. I buy a lot of secondhand as well. As I've mentioned, I love South African township jive and jazz and soul, and there's a lot of it on 45, and it goes back to the 60s, 70s, and some of them are in such a good condition still. It's because people looked after them.
Well, Mr. Charles Leonard, thank you so much for that very intriguing conversation this afternoon. Charles Leonard is a podcast editor at Newzroom.